just you get to choose. Right? Like here's the scenario. The environment gives us something which can be perceived as negative, can be perceived as not working, can be perceived as problematic. The world's ending. But we get to choose to see it like that, or we get to choose to see it as an opportunity.
So clearly that it's my responsibility now to do that for other people. If I have information and, other people's success is my success and vice versa.
Because you know what? Like, the challenges or the roadblocks are the journey themselves.
There's no big things. It's all little things compounding on top of each other.
Hey Coach, what is up? Here we go, another Private as a Coach podcast extraordinaire. Can I say that podcast? What's on your mind today? What's the good concept for you? What you got?
Oh, let's see. I think I've spent a lot of time reflecting recently, maybe not the right word because it's more future thinking, but about what 2024 is going to be like. And I know by the time this gets released, we'll be into February, but we're recording this in January, which seems to be a very common problem to think of, common time to think about, like a big picture, like a full year at a time. And so some people think of like assigning one word to the year. Other people think about their goals they'd like to accomplish at the end. I know we talked about journey in a recent episode. I think the more that I do it, the more that I practice thinking in a more of a big picture, the clearer what I want becomes. And I think that the permission I get when I think in those terms, to really list out what I want feels really good to me. And I maybe want to talk about that and go a little bit deeper today about how wired we are to think that we have to put up with something, or that we just have to work hard and then we'll get it, or like it'll come eventually. And I like to start from the place of, well, what do I actually want? What if there were no barriers, if there were no obligations I had to meet, or boxes I had to check off? What do I actually want? What would be great for me? And just operating in that place that feels good, and then transfer that to the actual process.
Why is it so challenging to know what you want?
I'll tell you why. I think it's because we're so conditioned that we can't have what we want, or like what we want is hard, or it's so far away. And it's only that way because of what we believe to be true, I think.
Yeah, I agree. We're definitely conditioned that way. And we're also very good at the other thing. But well, also then there's some nature in that, as well as the nurture part of it, of the protection and the survival versus the thriving and the happiness. So we're always going to default more to that as well. But but that's probably why it's conditioned as well. So it's both, double whammy. It's the make sure that you can survive, and therefore if you're alive, then you don't want to change something, because like that might mean that you're not. And that's why we get conditioned to we're really good at enduring. That's why the quote "you get what you tolerate" is always stabs me very deep. Right? It's like, you don't like something, change it. You don't like your job, change it. You don't like your relationships, change it. You don't like your body, change it. Because we tolerate what we've got. But yeah, it tends to be more challenging because you're not thinking about what you want. You're thinking about just keeping what you got. Scarcity.
What do you make of the model of motivation, of that pain versus pleasure, right? We know humans do things for two reasons, to move towards pleasure or away from pain. The most common seems to be to have pain settle in, and then we do something to fuck about it. How do we embrace more of the other part of that spectrum of like, I want to move towards pleasure. I want, like, does that have to come after pain, or is there, like, how do we not wait for the pain? How do we practice a new belief system or rewire our thinking that pain doesn't have to come for us to go after what we want, or to make a change, or to really get after it?
Yeah, I think that's just it. It's the practice of it. It's the when you work with clients and you work with them continuously on practicing concepts, when they actually do have a something significant happen, a significant event, that's when they're most emotionally challenged, like less resourceful, and that's when it's much more challenging to find those concepts and frames to work with. And so the goal is that you practice them enough that when they get into a place where they do need them, that they're available for them. It's kind of like if you're training for something, like training for some sort of event, right? If you're like if you're, we talked about this before. I think like if you're like in the military, like you're always in shape, right? Let's say like you're always in physical shape, you're always conditioned, you're always training. You're training for the possibility, not necessarily the knowing that there's something's coming. But it's like, well, can I take this time off because it's going to come? It's like, well, I don't know if it's going to come or not, so probably not. But so if they were just like, okay, we'll train when we need it. Like once the war started, then we'll start training. Once we're in battle, then we'll start figuring out. It's like, so it is the practice of practicing the concepts when everything's okay or everything's normal, okay, to be able to move through there when you feel the pain. But
Mm-hmm.
the medium with that is if I'm not feeling a lot of pain, I've got leverage on myself, a threshold moment, right? Because you could be in a relationship for a long time and know that it's not good. Right? There's some pain associated with it, but the pain's dull, right? Because you're used to it, you're tolerating it. But then there could be a flashpoint where you get like a new threshold that you've gone by. Like that's enough. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out. And it could be a small thing, but it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. And then you've got a raw nerve of pain. That's the point where you've got leverage to move through the pain, get out the pain. When you get to the pain, you don't get the pleasure, you get the comfort. But then you've got to keep moving through the comfort in order to get to the pleasure. And so it's the training at all times that there is a pleasure available. There is a 10x leap available for you at any point of your life, any time. It's just challenging to see when you're getting punched in the face, right? Like when you're in the
Mm-hmm.
pain of something, then it's hard to think about like being all the way to the other side of it.
Right. Well, and you bring up a good point is that the way I was thinking of it was this harsh pain comes out of nowhere, but it's really not that. It's we numb ourselves to all these duller pains until it reaches that threshold of like, okay, now I'm going to do something about it. So I took a note. I think like my threshold is decreasing for the
Mm.
pain tolerance that I want to put up with. And like I just even like little things, I just don't want to deal with them anymore. So I'm done dealing with them. So uh, it's interesting because I think I'm still moving away from pain in that sense, but I'm not like I'm not as far away from pleasure as if I waited longer for it to be more severe. Does that make sense? Like that scale,
Technically,
right? 10 to negative 10, 10 is the pleasure, negative 10 is the pain. Like sometimes I'd wait till negative 7 to make the change, take the action. Now at like negative 2, I'm like, I don't want to feel this anymore. I don't want to feel to a negative 3. I'm going up to like 2, 5, 7, 10.
yeah, it's like almost like you're minimizing the comfort zone. I like that, right? Because I like if that visual is that 10 to -10, that comfort zone might be between like the +3 to the -3. But if
Yeah.
you can make that the comfort zone is only the +1 to the -1,
Yeah.
right? Then yeah, that you're winning for sure. Like you shorten your comfort zone. That's cool.
You're winning as long as you know what you're signing up for, right? There's going to be more times that feel uncomfortable to you.
Hmm.
And I think I've been going through that, and the way that I have discovered or now believe that that's a good thing is that um, I live more of my time in the positives, right? Like whereas negative 2 didn't feel that bad to me because I had my coping mechanisms, or like I
Right.
would just pretend it was okay. I like stripped away all those coping mechanisms, so negative 2 feels like a negative 7 for me now. Um, and just having that be like I think that attracts more joy for me because I do something more quickly, and therefore yes, there might be more dull pains that I'm less tolerant of, but I'm experiencing joy at a greater level as well.
Yep.
Like and greater joy too, greater higher joy.
We talked about it maybe last episode or episode before that because I watched or listened to something that talks about the mechanisms of happiness and unhappiness in our mind. Right. I think that's an example of that. Right. So what you've done is we said just for reference that my thought was always that happiness and unhappiness is at a continuum, right? On one side it's
Right.
unhappy, and the other side is very happy. But apparently, neurologically, how it works is there's two different areas, right? So it's like
Mm,
you can have your happiness all the way to the top, but if your unhappiness is all the way to the top as well, then that's going to be a lot of conflict. So the goal is not just to get happier, but it's also to get less unhappy. It's two
mm,
different mechanisms. It sounds
right.
like you're doing both of those, right? You've created a way where you can see what more happiness is, and then you've got less tolerance for the unhappy. So you've created more of a gap. It's kind of like trying to add more money, more income, revenue to your business, or income, personal income, and like your income is $100,000, but you're spending $95,000. Like, I need more money, need more money. Well, if you
Yeah.
just moved your what you're spending to the 45,000, like suddenly you got this contrast where it's much better. Right? So you've got two different levers to pull on, and if you pull on both, where you go into 500 grand and then you're spending 45,000, different
Hmm.
world,
Right.
at least from a mindset point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to increase my wealth, right? And so there's deposits and withdrawals, and I can play both games to optimize the wealth that I have. And so I jump back and forth, like more deposits, less withdrawals, more deposits, what less withdrawals, and they
Yeah.
and they somewhat go hand in hand.
Well, because you get a compound effect if you're playing both sides. It's a huge
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like a coach, like a
Yeah.
coach.
Well, I feel like I got some insights already, so maybe we just keep this short and sweet today. How do we wrap here? How do we? What's a good summary of is this a new perspective, or how do we think about 2024 here? How do we apply this to the year here?
I love thinking about minimizing the comfort zone. I think that's a real cool practice, and it's a new distinction for me because that scale, however you want to think about that for your personal view, yeah, if you can associate to the pain quicker at lower levels, there's less travel. There's just less distance to travel to get back to the good stuff. If you're going down to that -7, like you talked about, oh man, I got to make 7 levels of changes just to get back to zero.
Mm,
Oh, so this could be. I mean, each level down is an order of magnitude harder, right? Because you've got to come like how much more of a lift it is to start at 7 and bring yourself up versus you're at 2. It's like, oh, okay, I'll just
hmm
like I change it me. So that's a big distinction for me. Like, so I guess the question is, in 2024, how do we continue to minimize our comfort zone such that we can really feel, be attuned to what's real for us, both positively and negatively? And that's a really cool way to think about it. Just to keep it front and center, to really feel everything that's out there. And for me, that just means being bold and committed to where you want to go, and knowing where you want to go, and being and making the change. Like 10x is easier than 2x. And then from a pain perspective, I mean that itself gives you a different perspective of how you look at the pain anyway. But knowing that it's a different function in your mind, to go, okay, how do I continue to minimize my comfort zone? That I'd have to think about a bit more. Right? I wonder what the function is there. Like I know that the pleasure is going to be moved towards focus on that, minimizing the pain piece. What would you say about that, Coach?
I think it might be the other way around. At least in my like I'm maximizing the pain at a smaller level.
Okay. Hmm.
Does that make sense? Like I'm
Yeah.
I'm less okay with the coping mechanisms, right? I've stripped those away, so I feel pain more acutely, more like sooner, more
Yep.
quickly.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. I think I got it right. So you're protected by going to the upside, and that's the thing that minimizes the comfort zone. So be just completely open to all the pain because it's going to be pain that like you need, and it's not going to be pain that's debilitating. It's going to be useful and be acting between the -2 and the +7 instead of the +2 and the -7.
Right. And here's maybe my insight or takeaway today is that I want to raise the bottom part of my comfort zone so high.
Hmm.
Like I want the bottom of my comfort zone to be like a +2. Like I that
Yeah, break the scale, create your own new
yeah
scale. Yeah,
yeah yep. And what does that mean? That means my tolerance for like the shit that I'm not going to put up with is so is so low. But
yeah.
that's where I'm going. That's where I'm headed. So that'll be my 2024.
Hold the standard. Hold the
Yes, sir.
standard. Create the standard, hold the standard, live the standard. Onwards and upwards. My
Love it.
coach.
See
Take
you
care.
next week.
Thank you for watching another episode of Truth Seekers. We appreciate your interaction, so please comment, like, subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want more, check out some of our links to our masterclass, The Achiever's Mindset, and come join our LinkedIn group. And what do you want to see more of? Remember, we're here to share the simple secrets of successful. So help us do that. What do you want to see? What do you want to see more of? Thanks, and see you again next time.